Welcome to Book Babe Beauty. My name is Erica and today it's time for another book review and I'm really excited about this one. It is a book I just finished yesterday actually, and it was written by one of my favorite authors. I have never been disappointed in any of her books. I have read them ever since I first discovered her 5 or 6 years ago. I just eat her books up. She is an amazing storyteller and she just has a really intelligent way with words and making everything in her book come to life with such visual description. And the book that I read is called Heartbones and it is by Colleen Hoover, and it actually just came out this year. It was published on August 19th of 2020 and it was such a wonderful read. I could not put it down. I read it in 2 days. That's typically what happens when I find a good book. I will read it in 1 to 2 days, and this was the case for that book. As you can see, I already have my base makeup on and my eyebrows on. I haven't done an eye look today because I wanted to save it for this video. The foundation I'm wearing today, I will try to remember to link that video up on top. It is a new foundation that I just tried, so if you want to check that out, you can get my impression on this foundation. But I wanted to save the eye look for this video because in the story, one of the main important components between the two main characters were sunrises, so I kind of wanted to do an inspired sunrise look on my eyes today. I don't know how that's going to turn out because I'm using a palette that I haven't really used. I think I've used one color out of it, and it seemed like the perfect palette for this look because it is called Scarlet Dusk and it just reminded me of like sunrises or sunsets, and it is by Ace Beaute or Ace Beauty. I guess that line means long E. Ace Beauty Scarlet Dusk, and these are the colors. Like I said, I've definitely tapped into these two, but those are the only ones. I have not used any of the orangey colors, and we're coming up on fall, or we're in the fall weather. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to give you my opinions about what I thought about this book. The main female character, her name is Bea, and I thought that was a really cool name. I'd never heard that name before. Bea was a girl from Kentucky. Bea was the daughter of a drug-addicted mom and an absentee father, and her father was very consistent at paying child support, but he was not as consistent about having a relationship with her. And so she basically lived under the care of her mom, but since her mom was addicted to drugs, she didn't really receive a whole lot of care at all. So she spent the majority of her life in Kentucky, and occasionally when she was younger, she would visit her dad for a couple of weeks when he lived in Washington. During those very short 2 weeks in the summer, she wasn't able to grow a real relationship with her dad, and the time that she spent with him wasn't enough to truly bond with him, and then communication between those times that she visited were few and far between, so she really didn't have a relationship with her dad. Now, just a side note, I don't have a paperback or hardcover copy of this book. I read it on my Kindle, and I typically do read books more so on my Kindle or the Kindle app on my phone just because it's convenient and it takes up less space. I don't have enough bookshelves dedicated for all of the books that I read, so this one was read on a Kindle. It was actually available on Kindle Unlimited, so that is a subscription, a monthly subscription through Amazon, and you can rent out books, and I think it's an unlimited amount of books every month. And it really is worthwhile if you read quite a few books. I think even if you read 3 books, it would equal the amount that you pay for the monthly subscription. So that's what I read it on. And having a mother addicted to drugs, even though her dad was consistently paying child support, the money really wasn't going to the care of Bea. It was going to fuel the drug abuse that her mom had. And so because of that, a lot of times Bea went hungry. And she learned very young that she had to take care of herself in order to survive. So because Bea had to learn to survive and take care of herself in order to live, because her mother wasn't properly taking care of her, she ended up having to do a lot of questionable things while she was growing up just so that she could have money for food. One of the things that Bea promised herself growing up was that she wasn't going to end up like her mother. She wasn't going to stay in her hometown in Kentucky because as soon as she could get out, she was going to. And that's, what she worked at. And she ended up finding somewhat of a passion in volleyball with the help of her coaches because they helped provide her uniforms and equipment. She actually became really good at volleyball, and she was able to get a full ride scholarship to a university in Pennsylvania. After graduation, she had her eye on the prize. She knew that she was getting out of that town, and as soon as she did, she wasn't going to look back. She didn't have a lot of friends in high school because they were so poor, and because all of the money that was from child support was going to the drugs, they didn't have any of the luxuries that a normal person would, at least in this day and age. One of those things was a cell phone. In fact, she lived next to the landlord of the trailer that she lived in, and most of the people in that trailer park used his cell phone in order to be able to make calls. So because she was kind of out of the loop, with social media and technology, she just wasn't able to maintain any friendships. Because she lived such a solitary life and didn't have, many friends. I mean, she lived with her mom, but her mom and her really didn't have a relationship. Her mom wasn't a mom to her. Bea was taking care of herself, feeding herself, making sure that she was doing well in school. Her mom never cared whether Bea was doing well in school. And it led her to keeping a lot of secrets in her life. Sometimes it was out of protection, and sometimes it was because she didn't want to allow anybody else to take credit for the accomplishments that she made in her life. Because of everything that she's been through, she had to work hard to get to the point that she was, and she wasn't going to allow anybody to take credit for everything that she did to get to that point. After Bea graduated, she was working at McDonald's, and her plan was that she was going to work at McDonald's and save as much money as she could so that when she left for college in August, she would have enough money to get her started out in the world on her own. One day she came home from her shift at work and she found her mother dead on the couch. At first, Bea didn't even really know how to feel about that. I think she always thought that it was inevitable. She knew how bad her mother's drug habit was, but it still was quite a shock to her because, that was really the only person that she had in her life, and she almost felt a sense of being more alone because her mother was the only person that she ever spent time around. And also she felt somewhat a sense of relief because she had always worried about her mother and had always worried she was going to come home to exactly what she came home to. I don't know whether it was minutes or literally hours after they took her mother's body away, the landlord came over and gave Bea an eviction notice because her mother hadn't been paying the rent on the trailer. She knew her dad was paying enough child support for them to pay rent on the trailer, But then, it became apparently obvious that all of that money for the last 3 months, it had gone to her mother's drug problem. Bea panicked because her plan to, make as much money as she could before she moved away to college was kind of coming to an end. What was she going to do? I mean, she had nowhere to stay. She couldn't afford to stay anywhere. She wasn't making enough money at McDonald's, and there was no point in trying to find somewhere to rent because she was only going to be there for the summer. So she inevitably had to do something that she really didn't want to do, and that was call her dad and ask if she could stay with him during the summer. She was already upset at her dad because he had missed her graduation, and she just felt more and more, especially in the last few years, that their relationship had become really strained. Neither of them were putting any effort into having a relationship with each other. But she also felt like he should have done more to check on Bea throughout the years and make sure that she was being cared for properly. He just thought that his monetary support was enough. And when she called him, he did agree that, she could come stay with him and he would buy her a plane ticket. And little did she know that her dad actually didn't live in Washington anymore. He lived in Texas, and it was near Houston, somewhere called the Bolivar Peninsula. She had never been to Texas. She'd only been to 2 states in her entire life, and that was Kentucky and Washington when she used to visit her dad. And she felt like the fact that she didn't even know where her dad lived, already said a lot about their relationship. When Bea arrived in Texas, she quickly found out that her dad had an entirely different life. He had a new life. He had a wife and he had a stepdaughter, and she had no idea. What she also didn't know about her dad now was he had quite a bit of money. She realized in her discussion, or in her short discussion with her dad on the way from the airport, that not only did he have a wife and a stepdaughter, but he also had a vacation home or a summer home that they were going to be staying at during the summer. And this was like a foreign language to Bea because, Bea was used to living in a very rundown trailer. And, the idea that somebody could have more than one home was just ridiculous to her. She didn't know this kind of life. She didn't know how she was going to fit in with this family, and she didn't know how she was going to adjust this summer. She just tried to keep in mind that it was just going to be a short time. She was just going to have to get through the summer, and then she would be off to Pennsylvania, and she would never have to look back again. It wasn't long after Bea's arrival in Texas that she became acquainted with a guy named Samson. At first, Samson seemed like any typical rich kid, and he kind of annoyed her in a way. And she knew that they probably wouldn't have anything in common because all of the struggles that she had been through obviously wouldn't be anything that he's gone through because he came from money. Bea was intrigued by Samson because he seemed to have a lot of secrets just like she did, but the more time that her and Samson had spent together, the more intrigued Bea was around Samson, and the more she really wanted to get to know him and figure out what he was all about. And it started with sunrises. His instructions were for her to watch and appreciate the sunrise every day, and she started doing that, and that became kind of their thing. I had to go ahead and do the majority of my eyelids because the palette is pigmented, but it was going on a little patchy, and I don't know if that's the base or if it's the eyeshadows. The red color that I had picked out is not as red as I thought it was going to be. It looks kind of pinky, but anyway, Bea really wasn't interested in having any kind of relationship with anyone, but somehow Samson kind of crept his way in a little bit. but they both realized that, you know, they both were harboring a lot of secrets and they both were trying to pull those secrets out of each other. They just gravitated toward each other. During her time with Samson, she was more willing to share some of the secrets that she was harboring. He seemed to know more about her every day than she knew of him. But the closer that they got, Samson made a promise to Bea that by the end of summer, she would find out all of the answers to the questions that she had been asking in order to find out his secrets. But the plan for Samson to finally share his secrets with Bea at the end of the summer kind of abruptly unraveled. It was an entirely different way that Bea was going to end up finding the truth out about Samson. She had realized that she let somebody into a heart that she didn't think she could even open up to anybody. She was hardened from her past and what she had gone through, and Samson completely transformed the person that she thought she was. Bea learned by the end of the story how quickly she was to judge other people, and it made her think twice. When she came to Texas, you know, she had judged Samson, she judged her dad, she judged her stepsister. Everybody that she came across, she thought they were somebody, you know, based on their background, and come to find out they were so much more. And it made her realize that she had been so judgmental of them because of being constantly judged in her life and where she's come from. She also realized that keeping secrets, she realized that her secrets that she kept really weren't protecting her. They really were hurting her, and she needed to be able to open up in order to establish relationships with people. I don't want to give too much away of this book because I do want you to enjoy the experience of it. It was a wonderful book to read. There's so much more than I even explained, and it's because I don't want to give you everything that happened. I don't want to give you any details because you would go into it already having certain thoughts in your head, and I just want to give you some basic background information, some basic plot information, so you go into it and you're just as surprised at everything that happens. Colleen Hoover is one of my favorite authors, if not favorite author. The books that I have read in the past mostly were young adult. This wasn't like smutty, but it did have some smutty parts. It was more along the lines of a romance novel than some of her novels are. She just has an incredible way of storytelling and a way to captivate the attention of the reader and keep them engrossed in the story. I read it in 2 days. I couldn't put it down. She has many books. I don't know how many books total, but she has many books. And if you haven't read one, I urge you to do so. You definitely wouldn't be disappointed. One of my favorite books was a book called Maybe Someday. And the story was about a musician and a songwriter. And in the story, they make music together. And along the story, there's clips of the music, and you can actually listen to the music as the story goes along, and it's just such an incredible way to get fully immersed in the story, and it will always be one of my favorite books. I've read it more than once. I can't tell you how many times I've read it because I know it's more than twice, but it's definitely a great read, and it's one of those books that I wish I could like delete it from my head and experience it all over again. I know I've said it in one of my other videos for one of my book reviews that I did that that particular book had come in what was called a bookworm box. Colleen Hoover is the author of this book today, and she is the one who started the bookworm box. And the slogan is good deeds, great reads. And it's because not only does she help promote indie authors that wouldn't maybe have the chance to be noticed anywhere, but she also gives some of the proceeds of the subscriptions and of the sales to charities. I just think it's a wonderful thing that she started, and there's so much good behind it along with the books. But what's really cool is when you get the books in your monthly subscription box, you also get some like memorabilia. Sometimes you get author swag. Definitely check that out. The look today kind of resembles sunrisey sort of, but whatever. I was going for sunrise colors because that was important in the novel, but I was just having fun with it today. If you want to know any of the products that I used today, I will list them down below. Like always, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try and do a book review each week. I have another one in the queue. I do hope you check this book out because it's definitely worth the read. It's worth the time, and it's worth paying the little bit of money that it costs to get the book. Thanks for your time, and thanks for all of your support, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!